Hi, Laura.
Hey, Greg. I'm ready to continue our discussion of aging. You know, in some ways, I really feel like I'm learning about aging from a master.
That must be an easy target or something.
No. Please, go on.
Well, last time we discussed aging and goals to meet the basic needs of elderly people with developmental disabilities.
We discussed the goals of economic security, adequate health care, access to teaching, and access to other needed services, including service coordination and advocacy.
Today we'll build on that topic by discussing aging and living with dignity.
I've always thought of you as quite dignified. That's a compliment.
Okay, but no more jokes.
Okay, no more.
Going through life, just meeting the basic needs for food, shelter, and health care, not much of a way to live.
It's survival.
We have goals to help the elderly person with a developmental disability achieve a sense of self-worth.
And live with dignity.
Exactly. The goals are 1, to be self-determining, 2, to lead a productive and meaningful life, 3, to maintain a healthy social network, 4, to become proactive about aging.
The first goal is self-determination.
Right.
I remember self-determination means deciding what you want to do, doing it, and learning to live with the consequences.
Instead of someone else making the decisions for you.
And there's not much esteem in having others decide for you what to do and where and how to do it.
That's true. Elderly individuals must be involved in day-to-day decisions.
What to wear, where to go, what to eat.
If a person can't communicate preferences verbally, we look for other nonverbal indicators.
Like body language.
Right. We also enable elderly individuals to make long-term planning decisions for themselves. You know, reaching age 65 can be a time of major lifestyle decisions.
About living arrangements? About retirement?
Exactly. And our goal is that elderly people with developmental disabilities choose their own lifestyles, beginning with where to live.
You mean independently?
Even the oldest individuals sometimes want to live independently.
So for the individual who is over age 65 and wants to live in a home of his own?
We do everything we can to make that possible. Age is never a limiting factor.
Even an elderly individual who has never lived in the community before?
We help the elderly individual prepare to live as independently as desired and help support the individual in that living situation.
But what about as the elderly person becomes more physically disabled and less independent with age? Will she have to live in a nursing home or an institution?
Nope. You see, it's possible to adapt the home rather than uproot the person.
So an elderly person who is severely impaired can still live on their own with proper support? That's terrific.
Adapting the home can mean adapted appliances, widening doorways to accommodate a wheelchair, equipping the individual with a signal in case of emergency. It can mean obtaining in-home health care, personal assistance services.
It's good to know there are options other than institutionalization.
Some elderly individuals prefer to live in a group living situation, and that's okay.
As long as it's the individual's choice.
As the individual needs more support and assistance in the group living situation, we train staff and adapt the residents to better meet the needs of the elderly individual.
The last thing we want to do is threaten a person with loss of their living situation.
That's right.
What about retirement?
Well, that's another major lifestyle decision. For the elderly individual who works, retirement is certainly an option.
Retirement's a big decision. It can be stressful.
Even when it's voluntary, the retired individual is separated from friends and loses a source of feedback that they're a valued member of a team.
I've heard of people who became seriously ill once they retired.
To make a smooth transition to retirement, there has to be something to retire to. There need to be programs or services available to take the place of work. It all takes preparation.
Preparation like financial planning.
That's part of it. It takes time to develop an adequate source of alternate income, to develop new friendships outside of the workplace, to develop recreational and leisure interests.
I see.
Transition to retirement can be gradual.
To make the adjustment less stressful?
Right. Work can be phased out over weeks or months or even years.
So working part-time is an option.
But not everyone retires. Many elderly individuals with developmental disabilities want to stay employed.
Because of the self-esteem that comes from work.
And because of the friendships. For an individual who works and becomes physically disabled, the workplace can be adapted.
Just like the home.
Yes.
What about elderly people who never held a job?
Part-time or full-time employment is a legitimate goal for any person with developmental disabilities.
Even a person over age 65 who never had a job before?
Certainly. Now, after self-determination, the next goal is to lead a productive and meaningful life. You know, while aging causes a loss of mental and physical ability, being active, productive, and involved keeps that loss to a minimum.
That makes sense.
If an elderly person can't enjoy an activity any longer due to physical or psychological limitations, it's important to the individual to develop new interests and activities.
It's a waste to just do nothing.
It sure is. But in the past, elderly people with developmental disabilities faced a full day of non-productive, life-wasting activities.
Like sitting around listening to music, watching TV, sleeping, overeating.
Elderly people with developmental disabilities don't need to kill time. They need access to interesting activities.
There are concerts, art exhibits, nature trails.
Absolutely. And elderly people with developmental disabilities must have the opportunity to continue to experience the excitement of life. So we encourage continued education.
There are always new things to learn, new hobbies, new skills.
There's community recreation.
At the Y, at community centers.
There's civic projects and religious activities to get involved in.
There's always a need for volunteers.
The main thing is to not segregate elderly individuals with developmental disabilities from younger and older people without disabilities.
I get it.
The next goal is to maintain a healthy social network.
My friendships keep me from feeling isolated or lonely.
For an elderly person, having a trusting, stable friendship is one of the major factors in quality of life, more important even than status or number of activities.
I'm not surprised.
We assist the individual to keep up contact with relatives, loved ones, and close friends of both sexes, including a romantic partner.
But what happens as the person ages and loses significant members of that social network?
The loss of a parent, friend, brother, or sister is one of the most severe stressors a human being can ever experience.
A loss can be a real tragedy, private, lonely. It takes time to recover.
Death of parents may mean changes in living situation, a change in guardian.
That's a lot to handle all at once.
We do our best to be supportive to an individual who's experiencing loss. If the loss is anticipated, we discuss it in advance. In vocabulary the individual can understand.
What about visiting the dying person?
Sure, if that's what they both want, it can be very valuable.
So part of maintaining a healthy social network is making peace with the loss of a loved one.
Yes, it might involve counseling. Eventually, it may mean assisting the individual to form new friendships.
I can see how that would help.
As an elderly person with developmental disabilities approaches death, it may be time to look into some more personal arrangements other than going to a hospital to die.
I think that if I knew I was about to die, I'd want to be with my family and friends.
Hospice and other forms of in-home care can substitute for hospital care. That way the individual can remain in a friendly, warm, familiar setting.
That sounds better than a hospital to me.
This is the time to help the individual understand the death process, plan how to distribute valued possessions, notify friends and relatives, and discuss memorial services as well as burial arrangements.
I see.
Now, the final goal is for people of all ages to become proactive about aging.
Proactive? What does that mean?
Being proactive means looking down the road, seeing what problems lie ahead, and making small adjustments now.
Instead of bigger adjustments later.
Being proactive about aging means developing good health habits as early in life as possible. You know, too much of the good life when a person is young means there'll be a price to pay later.
For example?
I'll take eating habits. Now, I'm the last one to pass up a chocolate chip cookie, but being overweight can complicate other medical problems and interfere with skills.
So is it a matter of helping people to learn to eat in moderation?
It's not only how much a person eats, it's also what that person eats.
You mean that too much red meat and fried foods aren't healthy?
That's what I mean.
So there's eating right, reducing salt, fats, oily foods, and eating whole grain breads.
That's a good start. For many people, living the good life also means avoiding exercise.
It means smoking and drinking.
Add in the stress of day-to-day living and you've got a surefire formula for life-shortening medical problems.
Like heart disease, stroke, cancer.
You know, about half the people over age 70 have some sort of a progressive physical disability that results in weakness, motion restriction, deformity, and chronic pain.
Wow.
Scary, huh? But people who exercise regularly are less likely to have a physical disability in later life.
So people who exercise regularly will be more independent. Makes sense.
Other good health habits that combat the diseases of the good life are learning to manage anger and stress, regular medical and dental care, and keeping active.
So the goal is to replace poor health habits with good ones, like eating right, exercising regularly, and getting enough rest.
And that's easier said than done. When we talk about how people eat, how they work, and have fun, we're talking about a way of life, and people need support to make lifestyle changes like these.
What can be done?
Well, in addition to providing information, support means demonstrating good health habits ourselves.
I don't smoke. I exercise regularly, and I don't eat meat.
You're perfect.
I thought our deal was no more jokes.
Okay, I take it back. You're not perfect.
Okay, we're even.
It's never too late to get the benefits of good health habits. They extend a person's life while making life a lot more pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Laura, our service goals for older people with developmental disabilities aren't much different from those of other older people.
We try to provide services that meet basic needs and allow a person to live with dignity.
The dignity that comes from being self-determining, from leading a productive and meaningful life.
From having a healthy social network and from being proactive about aging.
Right.
We want people with developmental disabilities to have access to the same services available to others in the community.
We work with the individual to obtain services that meet their needs.
Home health care, advocacy and service coordination, work and retirement planning, recreational activities, economic assistance, legal services, and a range of other supports.
We adjust our services to meet the needs of the elderly individual.
That means changing our program to fit the individual, not trying to make the individual fit into our program.
It means developing a service plan that consists of productive activities.
Keeping the wishes and concerns of the elderly individual in mind.
As people grow older, we help them adjust to changes.
Changes in routines, body functions, relationships. It takes flexibility.
We're careful that changes don't lead to inactivity and don't stigmatize the elderly individual.
You know, I think the reason I've been teasing you is that the thought of growing older really had me scared.
How do you feel now?
Aging isn't any less scary, but I see now that it's a process we all go through. I just hope I can help others through some of the rough times.
Well, that's what it's all about.
Thanks, Greg.
You're welcome, Laura.